There we go. Good evening and welcome everyone. I have a little bit of a different setup on the microphone today, so tell me if it's not working well with the sound, but it should work like this also. Beautiful. Good evening, Jack. Always a pleasure to see you. It makes me happy when I put on the stream and I start the pre-stream thing. And then I always see there's one or two people waiting, and it's always nice because in the beginning when I started screaming, there was sometimes no one there, and people would drop in as I started, and it's just nice to know there's regulars. Oh, look at this, Stephen. Hey, Tim, how's it going? Cool. We had I have to say it's been, oh my goodness, it's been so much happening this weekend. We had we got chickens for the house. So we have 3 little hens that just laid their first eggs this morning, and the kids are absolutely wild. And it's so much fun. It's one of the dreams I've always had, that I wish we had hens to have our own eggs. There's just something about, I don't know if you've eaten eggs from that are free in the garden compared to when you buy them in the store. When you buy them in the store, the yolk is it's just like white, yellow, but if they get to run around wild in your garden, they taste absolutely delicious. And just before now, I went online. I was just standing out there, just looking at them, and they're just sitting there, quack, 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 quack. It's just so peaceful. It's just, yeah, it's a very nice feeling to observe animals and nature. There's just something about it that's just very soothing and calming when you see it. So yeah, Tim. Yeah, we also have hens. Nice. The eggs taste great. Yeah, they do. It's. I mean, if you haven't tasted the difference between store-bought eggs and eggs made on your own house or someone else's house where they can run free, it's quite the difference. I'm surprised. And also they have lots of space to walk around. We haven't dared to let them out in our garden yet, but eventually they will be walking around in the garden by themselves. And yeah, that'll be fun. I've heard that they get so friendly with the people who live there that they go into the house eventually, and they can go into the house and just decide, I want to be in here. Yeah, it's more ethical for sure. I mean, they get to live a happy life here and then have an enjoyable life, and then at the end we'll eat them, I guess. How often do they lay eggs? I think. Well, we got them yesterday, and we have 2 eggs already on 3 hens. So I from what I've heard, it's about one egg per day. What do you say, Tim? How often do your hens lay eggs? And I mean, for kids, it's amazing. I think it's so good that we expose our children to animals so they can see them actually. And my daughter was jumping up and down like, thank you, hens. I so appreciate you laying eggs for us. And she loved the egg. And also, even though it's a bit more difficult, I think when we one day slaughter them to eat them, I think it's a good thing to show that to the children also, because we've been so distanced from we're actually eating meat. It's an animal. Some kids don't believe that what they're getting in this package is actually an animal. And since I'm not a vegetarian, I think that we should be aware of what we're eating. So then it's more likely that we'll let the meat that we buy be ecological, or at least that it's been treated humanely. I think that's important. See, how often do you eat them when they get old? Yeah, you eat them. It's a waste. Could they, when they get older, they stop laying eggs, and I mean, you could keep them for pets if you wanted to, but they eat quite a lot of food also. So most people eat them, and then they take new hens and they lay eggs. 2 out of 3 days, I think. Okay, yeah, so almost 1 egg per day. That's a lot of eggs, yeah. They are rescued from farms. Oh, nice. They're bred. Yeah. Yeah, they're bred. We have something called Småländsk blomhöns. It's an old line of hens that have lived in the forests. In small farms in an area in Sweden, and they're very resistant to diseases and infections, and they can handle the cold, and they're very calm, and they don't grow as big as the ones who's been genetically modified, but they lay a lot of eggs. No, I think we're going to enjoy it. It's still quite new, so it's a lot of getting used to it. And you have to look out because you can get lots of rats also, because they like eating the food. So I need to build the fence around it so they can't get in. It's interesting, when I was a vegetarian, I was a vegetarian until I was ordained as a monk. I stopped being a vegetarian. I think I was vegetarian for 8 years, and then I was ordained, and it simply wasn't possible. And I used to think that I didn't like people who were out hunting animals in the forest. It's quite common here in Sweden. You hunt deers, moose or elk, and boars. Lots of boars they kill. And I used to think that's really bad, but now I've changed my mind. I think that's probably the most eco meat you can eat, something that's actually lived out in nature. Even though I agree it's sad that we kill an animal that's living free, but compare that to locking them up in a small house somewhere with little light and just like feeding them, and then it's complicated. I mean, everyone has to make up their own minds about what they think about that. Have you tried to meditate with metronome? Well, I have meditated with guided meditations that have you also have I haven't done just a metronome, but I've done meditations where they have that sound, and I know they have. I did try all the binaural beats stuff, and I honestly, I don't really believe it. Maybe some people. I think it's one of those things. It's probably more effective for some people than others. For me, it does very little. I don't really need it. I mean, maybe that's the thing that brings you over the edge into one of these states that people are looking to get into. But since I've never needed it, then they just don't do anything for me. Is fishing ethical? I mean, I think so. But that's the thing. I'm not here sitting like, oh, you're wrong, you're right. I'm just saying what I believe, and I think that everyone has to make up their own mind of what they think is ethical and right, and then because as long as it's not something illegal, then it depends. I mean, I personally, I don't like the idea of mistreating animals. I don't like it the way that some animals are kept, especially hens. Hens live a really bad life. They live in big farms, and they basically change. I don't know exactly what it is, but instead of having 24 hours, they do the lamps so that the days are 18 hours or 20 hours. I don't actually know. And let's just say it's 20 hours. And what happens is that they will lay an egg per day. And by shortening the day, by turning down the lights, like changing the actual cycle, they will lay more eggs. And I just don't believe that's... I mean, you can also feel it when you eat meat like that. We had friends who lived on an island here in Sweden. Beautiful, big island. And they had a guest house there. Very special place, and amazing. And their friends had cows living on the island. I mean, it's the most peaceful, serene place you can be. There's like almost no electricity, absolutely no cars. You can't hear anything of humankind. Maybe sometimes you would hear the highway like over the ocean somehow, but usually very quiet. And those cows just lived there all summer, walked around, and they ate the grass and lived very peaceful. And that meat, oh my goodness, it was like it was different meat. It's just incredible, and I think that has to do with the fact that they lived a happy, calm life, not stressful. And the farmer that took care of them were really like careful how they slaughtered them and made sure it was good. And they lived in an eco environment during the winter, so they would take them ashore. So I think it makes a difference. But again, I'm not here to judge anyone. People do what they believe is right. I believe it's important that the meat or the food we eat has as much positive background as possible. And then there's also the economy question. Like sometimes we simply can't afford to buy eco meat or the kind of meat that we would like to buy, even though I wish we could. But we do what we can. And now we have our own eggs. Hey, Libati, nice new member to the group. Let me see, I can actually. There we go. Yes, we were just talking about eco. Do you eat meat, Libati? What techniques are you doing? We're doing a... time is running away. Sorry. We're doing a breathing meditation. So we do... first we do a mindfulness exercise, the 5-4-3-2-1 method, where we focus on our senses. And then we do a special meditation technique where you focus on the breath by counting. And I'll go through the details when we actually start the meditation. Non-vegan. Oh, nice. Yeah, my fiance used to be vegan. I was actually vegetarian until I was a monastic, and some people think that's weird. Like, if you're a Buddhist monk, wouldn't that mean you would be a vegetarian? Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Some traditions, yes, but the way it worked in the Theravadan tradition is that in the olden days, as my daughter says, we walked around on something called pindapata, and we had a begging bowl. So it was basically a big bowl like mine was out of steel, metal. Some had wooden bowls, and you would go from the house to house in the village, and there'd be a long procession, a long line of monks, and they just go through the village and they knock on the doors and they say, "Do you have any food for me?" And they hold out their bowls and they start taking things, and then they put in the meat. No, actually, I don't eat meat, but I see you have some really nice coleslaw over there and some nice cucumber. Can I have that instead? Because that I eat. I don't eat that food. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. They offer, and then you take what they offer to you. So in the Theravadan tradition, which is based on asceticism, is it asceticism or asceticism? I don't know, but they lived in the forest and they basically took what was offered. So they are not vegetarians. So I actually had to stop being a vegetarian when I was ordained. And I think there can be a lot of good stuff to look in there because there's a lot of distortion. I think it's a great thing if you are a vegetarian, but it can also go overboard. And I've found that many people are vegetarian, vegan. They suffer a lot from being vegan and vegetarian because they have so much judgment and distortion towards other people, which I think it's great to influence other people, but when you feel bad from the influencing, then it's not a good thing, in my opinion. People can, of course, do whatever they want. So, let's start. What we do is we have 20 minutes. I'm just going to take this quickly. A friend of mine visited a monastery where a lot of the monks had diabetics because people offered them a lot of... Yes, this is so common. You have no idea. It's actually it's a big problem because think of it. I'm just going to cover this quickly. When they have young monks in Sri Lanka, they ordain, I think, 7 years, like they're very young. So imagine if you come and you give offerings to the monks, and all the people believe they get good karma for the next karma, as it's called in Buddhism, for the next life. So obviously they want to give something to them, and monks that they like. And when you give to especially the small monks, they give them sweets, and like, oh, they like that. Of course they like sweets, and all monks like sweets, chocolate and stuff. And some, you're not allowed to eat, you only eat breakfast and lunch. You're not allowed to eat after that, but some traditions allow you to eat like some chocolate or something a little bit sweet in the afternoon, a cracker or something. So then, yeah, it is a problem. There's a lot of monastic monks who have diabetics because they eat so much sugar. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they give you a lot of sweets and desserts. It's really sweet stuff. So yeah, saying no is not an option. How do you mean? Saying no to sweets? Or, I mean, obviously you could say no to sweets, but I mean, if you're 7 years old, people basically think you're a demigod, and then they give you sweet and say, hey, do you want to eat some sweets? You're going to be like, yeah, give me more. Yeah, I mean, sure. I didn't always eat sweets when it was offered, but it is very nice. And sometimes I was hungry, and hadn't really figured out the thing that if you eat sweets, it's actually more difficult to not eat the rest of the day. Now I do intermittent fasting, so I just eat lunch and dinner. I don't eat any breakfast. Similar to when I was a monk, then we ate breakfast and lunch, and nothing until the day after. Okay, enough. We do 20 minutes sitting, and then after that we have questions and answers. We'll see how long it is today. I'm really, really tired, but we'll have a short question and answer after. So we start with the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which is a technique where we focus on our senses. And it's a really good way to start the meditation because usually your senses are spread everywhere and your mind is running around everywhere. So we want to come back and really be aware of what's happening now. So we'll say out aloud, and if you can't say it out loud, then just say it to yourself. But the important thing is that we need to stop and see what we're saying. So first we say 5 things we can see. So you can say it out together with me. I see a USB cable. I see a pair of boots. I see a electrical extension cord. I see a bell, and I see a microphone. And by saying it out loud, I have to stop and think, not just rabble them off. So the next thing is we do 4 things that we can touch. I can touch a blanket, a very soft and nice blanket. I can feel this woolen sofa. I can feel this cable, which is like a textured USB cable. And I can feel the microphone stand, the metal. After that, we do 3 things that we can hear. I can hear birds singing outside. And I think I can hear an airplane. I can also hear the sound of my computer. And then after that, we do 2 things that we can smell. I can smell furniture, cloth on furniture. I can smell my own sweat. And then we do 1 thing that we can taste. I can taste milk. I just drank milk before. So just start by putting yourself in a comfortable position. That can be sitting, it can be lying down, you can even be standing up or walking if you'd want to. Preferably you'd close your eyes if it's safe for you to do so. And then I want you to focus inwards. I want you to start focusing your breath. Just start becoming aware of what your breath feels like. We're not trying to control the breath or influence the breath. Instead, we're just trying to let breath happen by itself. So just see what breath is doing as you're breathing in and breathing out. And as you start becoming aware of your breath, ask yourself if you can give these next 20 minutes to this meditation. There might be lots of things that happened before today, many things that will happen tomorrow and the day after, but just for these 20 minutes, ask yourself if it's okay. If it's okay that you just let all of that rest for now. There's no need to solve any problems. There's no need to analyze and judge and criticize or come up with solutions. Just let all of the things that happened and all of the things that will happen rest for now. And just focus inwards on your breath. To make it a little bit easier, we will count our breaths. And we'll do it together at first, and then you can count by yourself. And we do this in a particular way. We put the count at the end of a breathing cycle. which is where the thoughts usually come in and distract you from the meditation. So together we'll breathe in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 8. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 1. Now just continue counting your breath by yourself from 1 to 8, and then down again from 8 to 1 as you breathe in and breathe out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. In this particular kind of meditation, we're not trying to control the breath. It's actually the way that I breathe in the beginning is not how you're supposed to breathe. I just do that to make it easier for you to follow along, even though you can do it that way if you'd like. especially in the beginning, it can be helpful to make the breath more apparent. But as you go along, just try to step aside and let breath happen by itself and see what it will do. Many times it will calm itself down, get more shallow, but it can also become faster. Maybe something comes up and you start breathing more heavy. Whatever happens, that's okay. We're not here to judge the breath. We're not here to compare the breath to your last meditation or the person sitting next to you or someone sitting across the screen from you. All we're trying to do is to be aware of what your breath is doing right now, whatever that may be. It's also not necessary to feel the physical sensations of breath. Instead, it's more of an awareness of breath is happening. As you focus on breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. Sometimes when you sit, you'll feel an itch. You'll feel some clothes that are lying in an uncomfortable way. And you'll have an urge, a distortion towards that itch. And you want to raise your hand or move just slightly to correct that itch. Next time that happens, see if you can just wait a little bit to pick your nose, to move that hair that's lying on your forehead and annoying you. Whatever it is you're feeling, just see if you can just let it stay there. And then use your breath as you're counting up and down as your anchor. And just let that irritation, just let that distortion exist at the same time. And see what happens. And then eventually you can just reach up your finger and move that straw away, or take out that booger that's annoying you, or whatever it is you need to do. And just keep on meditating. And also observe, do you feel guilty, failure, like you should have been able to sit longer? Or like you should have just moved it right away? Whatever you feel is okay. Just observe the distortion and see what that feels like. As you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. If you're noticing all of a sudden that you're counting 15, 16, 17, or maybe you've simply forgotten altogether to count your breath, then just start over. The key to getting better at this kind of meditation is to be kind to yourself and start over. Whatever you're meditating on, whatever your object of meditation is, just keep coming back over and over again without judging yourself, without comparing yourself to the last session or to what your friend told you they experienced. But instead, as soon as thoughts drift in or you drift away with your distortions, and you become aware, realize that that's success. You became aware that you lost your focus, and then just start over again. There's no failure here. So just keep coming back to your breath over and over as you drift away with your thoughts. And count your breath, breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. If you want to, we can try a little experiment the last few minutes left of this meditation. Just keep on meditating, but I want you to, in a few seconds, lift up your finger and then gently tap it where most people would consider the third eye is, which is between your eyebrows and just a little bit up on your forehead. Just a light tap and see if something happens. So just lift your hand. Just hold the finger in front and then tap. And see if something happens and keep on meditating. If you want to, you can simply keep on meditating, or it's free to ask questions if you have any. Jack is saying 11 stages of knowledge and 16 stages of insight. Are you talking about the jnanas, or what do you mean, Jack? Actually, what is your question? Or was it just a statement? Yeah, jnanas. Jnanas is something you go through. There's something called a cycle when you do meditation according to the Theravadins. It's quite interesting. That I've seen and talked to thousands of people who have meditated, and there seems to be a pattern where everyone just goes through certain things in a specific order, and it's a very specific order that happens. That could be a very long topic. Just very quickly, my way of summarizing summarizing the jnanas is that it's called knowledge of, which is jnanas, not to be confused with jhanas. Jhanas are concentration states, and jnanas, I'm not so interested in what they are said to be a part of, but you can kind of group them up into first one section, and then one section, and then a final section, followed by the fruition of your meditation. So in the beginning, the way we think of it is like you sit down and you start meditating, and you like have no idea what you're doing, and it just feels like, okay, my concentration is going up, I'm getting this stuff kind of, and as you go through the third or fourth jhanas, there can be a lot of pulling. The body will just twitch, or the head will turn to one side, or you'll do like weird shaking and stuff. And then as you go on through that, there's a thing called the rising and passing away, I think it is. Can't remember now, I never think about these anymore, except in broad terms. I think it's the fourth jhana, where your concentration just shoots up to the sky, and it's like you're so sharp. You focus on your breath, it's like you like have absolute control of your breath. You're like, I get it. It's actually called false enlightenment. And there's a text called False Enlightenment in Theravada Buddhism that talks about how this feels like you're enlightened, but it's just the fourth stage of this first cycle, which means very little. So it feels like you get it, and if you keep on meditating, especially if you do an intensive retreat, then after that it will slowly start to fall apart. And you're kind of sitting there thinking, I don't get it. I figured meditation out, but now it's not working. So if it was up here, it just keeps on going down, down. And if you started here, it keeps going down, down. And then you enter into what's called dukkha jnanas, or in the West, it's called the dark night of the soul, and everything is just absolutely terrible. So you have the first part where you sit and you just kind of normal meditating, and then you go into this really dark part, which can be very scary. And the difficulty here is that people get caught up in it and make up stories, and it's my past life karma coming up, and they just get stuck sitting in here, and it can cause lots of issues. If you manage to get through that, you get into equanimity jnana, which is where you're just walking around like, oh, well, it's okay. I don't know if I'm good or bad at meditation, but it's fine. You no longer have an issue with anything. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. It just is. And that's actually a very difficult part to get through, because you're so unmotivated to do anything, because you feel like, it's not that you feel, yes, I did it. It's more like, well, there's nothing to be done, but there is something to be done. And then if you go past that, you get fruition, and that's where you experience what's called nirodha. Nirodha, which is this cessation, is literally non-existence. You don't. It's if you'd be walking, you can't. Well, if you'd be walking, a way of experiencing is like you'd be walking, and then all of a sudden you disappear, and you reappear here. Like your thoughts just kind of go and come back all of a sudden. You disappear and come back. I think you can have it when you're walking. It usually would just happen when you were sitting, and you're not really aware. You can notice where you're falling into something and coming out, and then it starts over again. So that's the 16 stages of insight. See, Stephen is saying, does living in a monastery stunt your growth because you aren't dealing with everyday things? Or do you grow more because you are spending so much time in spiritual practice? I might leave for the monastery this fall, a couple of months. Great idea, Stephen. I'd say it like this. Imagine if you were, let's see if I can come up with an analogy. Imagine if you were trying to read a book, but there's constantly people interrupting. You have this amazing book with lots of knowledge, and you're like, oh, I really want to read this book. I'm gonna cook, and I have the recipe in this book. And you start reading it, and then all of a sudden someone comes up like, ha ha, and they flash a flashlight in your face and make lots of weird sounds. And then like start banging drums like, and then like, okay, calm down. I'm going to read my cookbook here. And you start reading the cookbook, and then someone starts whispering in your ear. And I'm like, stop it. I'm trying to read my recipe here. And you keep being interrupted because of all these things that keep happening around you. And that's kind of how I see going to monasteries. Like, you want to observe something, you want to grow, but you can't do that because there's so much distractions. By going to a monastery, you shut all of those things off, depending on what tradition you go. If you join a Theravadan tradition, which is really strict in like limiting your input, even colors and what you're being exposed to, so you just have as little as possible to make it easier for you to just read your book. So if you see it that way, then are you stunting your growth? Well, you're just taking a step back, accepting that, hey, I'm not able to be aware of everything. I'm not able to progress because I'm just constantly overwhelmed. So by taking a step back, you can actually start looking at what's coming up. Normally, we're so overwhelmed by impressions and needs and desires and wants and pressure from other people that it's very difficult to do something. So living in a monastery can really help with that. So I wouldn't say that it stunts your growth, even though, I mean, if you wanted to make it into that, maybe you could say that. But if anything, it just limits the input on your senses so that you can observe. That's basically what it does. It doesn't have to do anything. I mean, it's not necessary that you can go away for several months and just come back and be the same person. You could also go away for several months and come back and be a completely different person. I mean, that depends. Jack, there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. Yeah, there's a song in Plum Village, center I went to a lot. They have a center which is more focused on interaction with other people and more mindfulness. and they sing, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and I don't need to worry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. I can't remember the rest. But they have lots of like nice songs like that, and it really is like that. You drop. I don't have to go anywhere, and when you drop having to go anywhere, having to do anything, then it's much easier to grow. So I don't think you stunt your growth, but I can see how some people might see it that way. How did it work with? I'm very curious. How did it work when we did the finger on the forehead? Did that do anything? Like, when I have guided meditations and people are with me physically, then I will go around and I will just tap them on the forehead, and it can be very, very intense. Because you're sitting so calmly, and then someone just touches you. I'm not sure if it works on yourself, but did anything happen, or was that just kind of? I've had people get really scared also because it can be so intense from sitting and just feeling all these small nuances, and then all of a sudden there's something really coarse, something very big, and I actually started asking people if it's okay that I tap them first, because some people got almost angry at me, like, hey, what did you do? But I'm not sure if it works like this, if I could actually tell you to do it because you're doing it yourself, and I'm assuming that maybe that wouldn't work. I just wanted to try. And maybe people didn't do it, I don't know. It was very interesting to feel that point for a very long time, like the sensations were very strong for a long time, just by a very soft touch. Nice. I just felt pressure in my forehead for a little. Yeah, it can sometimes, what happens basically is there's just a tiny pressure, and that gives you something to focus on. I also know there are some techniques where they kind of rub certain parts, and it will give you a really strong sensation that can really start pulsing. So there's also another technique called tapping, where you tap certain points. It can be really good for releasing trauma and stuff like that. So touch is important, and touch can do a lot of stuff. I'm assuming it won't really work the same way if you do it on yourself. But yeah, I just wanted to try because I'm curious. I haven't actually asked anyone to do it on themselves before, so that was a bit of an experiment. Okay. I was not deep in meditation at that moment, was just distracted. Yeah. Well, like I said, it's I think it's difficult to do on yourself. See, Tim said, I know of the tapping from Qigong and also a technique called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Emotional Freedom Technique is, I remember reading about that, for releasing trauma and belief system, exactly. I think when I was a monastic, I looked into EFT, and I thought it was very interesting because basically what it does is that it gives you it gives you something to focus on. It gives you really strong concentration because it's constantly tapping somewhere. And if trauma can be tension, I mean distortion is basically tension, then in a way it kind of makes sense. By tapping that part, you bring focus to it, and you're also relaxing it, kind of like when you do this. So I've heard people have had great success with EFT, especially trauma releasing and difficult emotions. So I think it's a really interesting system. I'm not that familiar with it. I've tried it. I've tried some videos where they guided you through it, and I found it interesting. Yeah, it's cool. Let's see. My mama is saying, but I assume it can give different sensations and experience. I actually like the touch, so it gave me a point to focus. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, like I said, I can feel my eyes going like this. Oh, one more thing, by the way. When I have the microphone like this and we did the guided meditation, was it loud enough? Could you hear what I was saying? And did it pick up more sound from around? Like, could you hear the cars and stuff? Did it work as well? Because it's quite nice having it like this a bit away from me, but I'm not sure how it worked for you guys. Thank you for a nice. Thank you, my mama. Cool. Sleep well. Did anyone notice anything about the sound otherwise? Couldn't we? Oh, cool. Good. Nice. I think I'll have it like this because it's so. And it's a bit nicer to have a bit more freedom here. Otherwise, I can like keep bouncing into the microphone. Worked nice. Cool. Good night, everyone, and I'll see you back on Thursday again. I hope you have a great week, and yeah, keep on meditating.